to your Good Life Now podcast. My name is Frankie Martinez. I'm your host, and I'm so glad you decided to tune in and listen to us today or watch us if you're on YouTube. Today, I'm talking about family, your first ministry. Family, your first ministry. And funny how this idea to record this episode came out is me and my son, we went to go see Steven Wilson Jr. in concert on Sunday night. If you don't know Steven Wilson Jr., you should, especially if you love good music. He's a very up-and-coming artist. We love him a lot. Anyways, we were at his concert, me and my son, and he debuted a song that's not out yet, so you can't officially hear it, but he said, I'm going to play a new song, hasn't come out yet. It's called Preacher's Kid. And I'm like, okay, let's hear what this has to say. Now, the main chorus of the song says, Preacher's Kid, don't give a darn, although he didn't say darn. Preacher's kid, don't give a darn about you or Jesus. And he goes on to just talk about why and all these pretty funny, crazy things. And it was actually pretty funny, but it's kind of sad. I thought, it's kind of sad that preachers' kids have that bad rap about them, the bad reputation where preachers' kids, everyone, me growing up, we all knew that they call them the PKs. The PKs are the preachers' kids, the ones that are notorious for being rebellious, not into God, not walking far away from God, usually addicted to things and just doing crazy stuff. So that's the PK bad rap that was around when I grew up, and so to hear him sing this song about it is just like, man, it just got me thinking like, that's shouldn't be that way, If you're a real minister, if you're a real preacher or a church leader for that matter, or just a Christian period, I think, our children should be known to be a strength of our life, not a negative, reputation, So me, I'm a preacher myself, I've preached many times. I still preach. I've pastored a church and multiple ministries and on and on. So when I hear that, I think of my kids, but my kids aren't like that. My kids do not follow the negative statistical pattern of a preacher's kid or a PK. And I want to talk to you about why. I believe so. And like I said, this isn't just for preachers, okay? So if you're not a preacher, don't turn off this episode. I think it's going to apply to you. It's for anyone who's a believer, a Christian, because our children we're called to be the light of the world, so our children should be the light of the world as well. So our children should be setting the example. We should be modeling a Christian family, we should be modeling what a family looks like to people who don't know Jesus. Just like when they look at a Christian, the world is supposed to see the model of a godly life, of a good life. Well, I believe if you are a Christian, when the world looks at your family, they should be able to see a model. They should have something they can emulate that's positive, that brings about life and good fruit. So that's what we're talking about today. Family should be your first ministry. Family should be your first ministry. And I'm going to talk to you. Let me read this verse. It's in 1 Timothy chapter 3. We're going to read 1 through 5. And Paul, the apostle, is talking to Timothy, telling him about church leadership and who qualifies to be a leader in the church. It says, verse 1, here is a trustworthy saying, whoever aspires to be an overseer or a leader desires a noble task. Now the overseer is to be above reproach, fruitful, faithful to his wife, temperate, self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, able to teach, not given to drunkenness, not violent but gentle, not quarrelsome, not a lover of money. Check this out, verse 4. Whoever wants to be a leader, Paul says, must manage his own family well and see that his children obey him. He must do so in a manner worthy of full respect. Verse 5, if anyone does not know how to manage his own family, how can he take care of God's church? Wow, pretty strong, pretty plain. And I love how he says it so plain. If you want to be a church leader, you should be able to manage your family well. Your kids should obey you. But I love how it says it's not just about your kids obeying you, but it's having them obeying you in a manner worthy of full respect. So it's not just about beating your kids into obedience or just, punishing them and being crazy. It's loving your family to the point where they respect you and want to be obedient. They want to honor you. They want to be a part of your life. And so I'm sharing this because this is just something that we get a lot of, responses everywhere I go. I mean, even at the concert when me and my son went, people are grateful to see that my 16-year-old son actually wants to hang out with me. He's like, wow, I guess so many people, your son went with you to a restaurant, your son went with you to a concert. How do you do that? My son doesn't even want to hang out with me. My son, I have to twist his arm to just go somewhere with me. And I mean, many times, me and my daughters, we go out to concerts and we get the same thing. It's like, oh my gosh, you're here with your daughter? Oh my gosh, your daughter's 23 and 26 and she wants to hang out with you. And it's because we have loved them to the point where they respect us. And so that's what comes to my mind when I think he must manage his own family and do so in a manner worthy of full respect. And verse 5 says, if anyone does not know how to manage his own family well, how can he take care of God's church? So managing your family with full respect means your family is your first ministry. Your family is your first and foremost ministry. And anything outside of that should, ministry that has nothing to do with your family should be an overflow. In other words, if you have such a strong family and you learn leadership skills, you learn how to inspire, how to encourage, how to pray for, how to minister to. Family is literally a ministry, and we need to understand that, that the priority should be your family. If you are a Christian, your family is your number one ministry, and so that is your call. God has called you to minister to your family, to your spouse, to your children, to your household. That is your number one calling of God. And the Bible says that should be the qualification over who gets to lead in a different setting, in a church setting, in a platform. It should be family greater than the platform, family over the platform. If you can't minister to your family well, you shouldn't be on the platform. I wish churches did this today, and obviously they haven't done this for many, many years. That's why PKs have been known to cause a lot of trouble, preachers' kids. And because I think the church has overlooked this for so many different reasons, so regardless, I'm not saying my family's perfect. I'm not saying I'm the perfect father, but that is my priority. And I think what you prioritize makes a huge difference in your life. So before I get there, I'm going to talk about why your family should be your first ministry. Is you got to realize so many people put church ministry over their family. And I think the reason why is because what they're trying to get out of the church. If you're in church to get position, to get esteem, to get power, to get respect, to get all those things, you're in ministry for the wrong reason. Ministry isn't to give you self-esteem. It isn't to make you feel special or important. If you love your family, you will get all the respect and honor you need from your home so that you can enter the ministry to give, not to get. You shouldn't be in ministry to get stuff. You should be in ministry because your life is together. You have a great relationship with God. You have a healthy family life at home. And now you are ready to pour into others. You're ready to give, to sow seeds, to encourage, to minister, to build up. But what happens is when this gets upside down, people neglect their children because they're hoping to get affirmation from a church board. People are neglecting their children because they're hoping to get affirmation from a platform where people can applaud them and praise them, where they should have already got that from their home. So things have become upside down, And it all comes down to the heart and the motive of why you're doing things. We are not called to minister to get any kind of thing you're looking for, position or respect, accolades or praise. That's not what ministry is about. Ministry should be you carrying your cross and laying down your life to give to other people, not to get. So basically, if we go back to what the Bible says, if you can lay down your life for your family, and if you could build a healthy home, guess what? Out of that will overflow the ability to minister, to encourage, to build other people up. Then you can have a fruitful ministry. You can have a fruitful ministry with the right heart, with the right motives, with the right intent. And this goes not just for platform stage ministries. This goes for any kind of leadership. Every one of us is a leader in one way, shape, or form. Whether we're leading on the stage, a platform, leading behind the scenes with delegation tasks, or leading in your home, leading on your job, we are all called to be leaders. And so we got to understand that our first and foremost ministry is our family. And why should you put your family above even the church ministry? Is because churches will come and go. Unfortunately, sometimes churches will come and go. You may have to move. You may have to go out of town. And guess what? You're going to leave that church, go to a different state, different city. Now you have a whole different church. Maybe you experienced a church drama and you have to leave. I don't know. But whatever the case may be, churches will come and go, but your family will not. You can be a part of a couple different churches throughout your lifetime, but you're only going to be a part of one family. Your family is going to be there till your very last breath. That's why you should put family as a higher priority than even ministry. That's what the Bible teaches. Your family is your first ministry. It's literally about just setting your priorities. Now, family should be a high priority, but do you realize it's not just what you prioritize, but it's how you prioritize it. So say if you talk about let's say your top 5 different things that you prioritize in your life. So you prioritize 5 different things. Well, the order of those 5 different things is going to determine how you live your life. So I believe, according to the Bible, God obviously has to be number one. Just kind of like in the airlines, they say, put on your own oxygen mask first before you can help somebody else. If you do not have a strong relationship with God, if you're not walking with God, if you cannot hear from God, if you don't know how to pray and have a relationship with Jesus Christ, then you won't be able to help not even your spouse or your family. So that has to be number one. Number one has to be having a strong relationship with God. Number 2 should be your family, according to the Bible, because the Bible says if you can't manage your family, what are you doing trying to manage the church? So put ministry aside and let family be number 2, because that is your first priority. God will hold you accountable for your family. How did you raise your children? How did you love your spouse? How did you do this? This is what God is going to hold you accountable as your first and foremost ministry above every other thing. And I mean, you see that even when Jesus says, some of you will say in that day, Jesus, I casted out demons in your name. We did all these good works. In others, we did ministry for you, Jesus. And in Matthew, Jesus' response is what? Depart from me, for I never knew you. That is a scary thought, to think you can do all these works in the name of God and be unknown to God. Well, how is that possible? By mixing up your priorities, not getting your priorities straight. God is number 1. Your family has to be number 2. You have to create this culture of God's presence. It should be normal for your family to talk about God. Should be normal to discuss biblical things and Bible verses and Bible study and to pray for each other. That is a normal culture of a godly home. And when you set that first, then your family becomes your first ministry. Then the third ministry, then you could do other ministry, outreach. Sure, you don't want to keep it ingrown in your family. You want your family to minister. And I think that's what, when me and my family ministered, we always ministered as a family. The last ministry we did publicly was with a youth ministry, and so my teen daughters were there. Well, one of them was older than a teen, but she would help as a leader. My other teen daughter was a youth leader, and my son was even in there too, helping, even though he was underage and not even a teenager yet. So, and my wife was there. So we served together as a family. And I believe that's the best, most powerful way you can do this. And I believe that's God's way. I mean, look in the Bible, there were families, there were tribes. The Levitical priesthood was the family of Levi's family, and they had the job. That was their role, their ministry. And so you got to understand, that's God's original intent, was to minister as a family. And so family has to be a priority, but I encourage you to bump it up to number 2. Bump it up higher. I don't know what list you have. And for me personally, family has been number 2. It's God, family, work, ministry, health, friendships. Those are all probably the top 5 values that we have. I have personally, but the order that you put them in makes a big difference. And I think of my life, and I think of the reason why I have family as such a high value is I heard the saying, which is, I believe is so true. It says, your greatest pain always leads to your greatest purpose. The greatest pain in your life will lead to your greatest purpose in life. And for me, growing up in a non-Christian home, growing up in an ungodly home environment, it was my greatest pain. And there's a lot of painful things that God had to heal me from, bring me throughout my life. But I am grateful for that experience. And I believe that it's because of the pain I experienced in family. That's the reason I pursue it as a purpose, a life purpose, to create a home, create an atmosphere, a culture that I wish I had as a young kid. And so me tapping into my pain allows me to tap into my purpose, which allows me to build a strong family culture. And that's why I prioritize. Me and my wife both. You've heard her on the podcast. You'll have her come back. You'll see her back on the podcast when we talk about family, because that's our values. We value family highly. We agreed when we got married at 18 years old, and we had our first baby at 20. I was 20, and we decided right there that we were going to prioritize family over everything else, even over business, over finance, over everything. Family was the most important thing, because we're entrusted with our children. We are entrusted by God to raise our children in a proper way, in a right way that would honor God. And they are a legacy. Your legacy. Do you realize your family legacy will go further than any financial legacy you leave? Because your family legacy is alive and it lives inside of a person, your children, and they go forward when you're gone, but your legacy lives forward in your children. But in a financial legacy, guess what? Once you blow that money, that legacy's gone. But not when your legacy is in your children. Your legacy should be in your children, not in a bank account. It's good to have a bank account to leave to your children, but your first and foremost legacy is a spiritual legacy that lives forever inside of your children, that they will pass on to their children and their children and their children. And that's my dream and my hope. When someone says, yeah, my great grandpa Frankie, he fought for God. He fought for Jesus in his life. He broke a curse in his family, and he allowed the blessing of the Lord to come down and pass for generation after generation after generation. And that's the legacy that God has for you. But you will only have that when you prioritize your family first. When you put first, and I don't mean first over God, but first over other things. So that's just something that you got to realize. And me and my son were talking about this. We went out to get some lunch the other day, and we were talking about it. And I was sharing with him why I believe that family has always been important to me, and it's because of my pain in life. And you see that in different people. You see some of the wealthiest people on the earth were people who grew up in dire poverty, because that was their greatest pain. So now, because they grew up in such pain of poverty, they fought so hard to overcome and not go there. So now they're living in financial abundance. People who grew up in, an environment where, they weren't healthy. Now they flip it and I don't want to live like my family. I want to reverse that. I want to live in health. And so it doesn't mean you have to be raised or grow up in a non-good family relationship to prioritize it. I'm just sharing with you that's why I prioritize family. And regardless of your history, regardless if you grew up in a good family or not, you can grow up in a good family and not prioritize family. You can grow up in a good family and just value other things greater than your kids. And, it hurts me to see so many people even value career over their children, because you only have your children for a limited amount of time. You have your whole life to build your career. Now, I understand that. My children are getting older. I know they're not always going to be here, and I can always keep building. It doesn't mean I'm neglecting. I obviously, you have to have balance. You have to provide to be able to have a good career to provide for your home. But realize the time you have for your children is so limited that if you don't prioritize that time, you may regret it the rest of your life. But if you prioritize it right, you can sow seeds that you will reap the harvest the rest of your life. What does the Bible say? The Bible says children are like an arrow in your hands. Think about that. When you build and develop relationship with your kids, it's equipping you with weapons in a sense. Not that you're using them for your own advantage, but it empowers you. It gives you an offensive that you wouldn't normally have because you spent time building your children and prioritizing them and making your children and your spouse your first and foremost ministry. And as I was talking to my son at lunch yesterday, I was thinking about my journey, my adventurous ministry path, I'll call it. Me and my wife's adventurous ministry path. But I think of it more personally when I think of this journey of ministry that God has led me on throughout my whole life. I got radically saved when I was 14 years old. I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I gave my life to Jesus the first time I heard the gospel. My life was radically changed at 14. And I began to preach the gospel immediately, and it led to ministry opportunity after ministry opportunity after ministry opportunity, to the point where we were pastoring a church, which we pastored for 7 years. But the funny thing is it just goes to show you that God's in control, that God literally guides your steps. There's a verse, one of my favorite verses in the Bible. It says, many are the plans in a man's heart, but it's the Lord's purpose that prevails. So we have all these plans. We had plans and in ministry. And what I noticed looking back on my life is every time my kids entered the preteen teen season of their life, we had a season of rest of ministry. I have two daughters, and they're 3 years apart. So their preteen teen era came together, and it was so funny to think. It's funny to look back on it now. It makes me really think, wow, God literally orchestrated this in a beautiful way. And I think it's because 100% your preteen, teen years are the most critical years for your children. It's the time in their life where they are molding their own selves, finding their own identity, discovering their path, choosing their path. Even statistically, it's proven that teenagers who give their life to Jesus are more likely to stay living for God throughout their adult years. And it just goes to show you that what you do in your preteen, teen years has a major influence on the rest of your life. It's kind of like sets the course for your life. And I noticed that in my life. I mean, that's when I gave my life to Jesus. And here I am at 47 talking to you on this podcast about living for Jesus because of a decision I made when I was 14 years old. So what I'm saying is your preteen, teen years. Now, I don't mean to be rude, but if anyone is giving you parental advice and they have not survived or overcome in the teen era of their children, do not listen to them because they have no idea what they're talking about. No offense, I'm just saying it because the preteen, teen parenting is a whole nother ballgame. And it's so easy to love your kids when they're 5 years old and they're so cute and they're just doing their little things. But can you love your kids when they're going through their own identity challenges and changes and they don't even want to be with you? That's when your parenting really gets tested. And that's when you realize, what are you going to do? Are you going to see a lot of parents when they hit that preteen, teen season in their life? That's when they back up. Well, I need to give my kids space. I just need to, they're going through stuff and they back up. Parents, that is the worst decision you can possibly do. When your preteen and teen is going through these changes, do not back up, but press forward. Fight for your teenager, fight for your children. I had to do that with each of my kids. And is it easy? No, but it's worth it. I sacrificed everything for my kids in these preteen, teen eras. And so I realized, looking back on it, when my daughters were going through their preteen, teen era, we had stepped down from pastoring our church. And so we had a good long couple years of not being like in a full-time platform ministry. Of course, on the side, we did things at home groups and stuff like that. But we didn't have this big burden of ministry on us. And I think it was the Lord's doing. I think God knew that my greatest passion and purpose is to build a strong family. And I needed to be there for my kids. I needed to be there for my daughters when they needed me. I needed to be there. I had the time that I wouldn't have had I been pursuing ministry so strongly. You see, and it was at that time when I had to choose to fight for some struggles with my daughters, and I was able to be there and fight for them and fight to have time with them. And we shared this. We have a couple episodes on the podcast about family stuff that me and my wife shared. I think it's called The Secret Sauce to Family or something like that. Look up that episode. I talk a lot about what I'm talking about in detail there, where I had to fight to have a relationship with my teenagers. And I realized, to put it in a nutshell, I realized what was a real value for me was to just get into whatever they were into. So I was able, my daughters at the time, they really liked those indie pop bands or indie rock bands. And so I was able, because I wasn't preaching every night and doing all kinds of Bible study and researching all these things, I had time to take them to concerts, and we were able to build relationship and bond, because I wasn't so overburdened with ministry, that I had time to be there for my children and to shape them to the wonderful young women that they've come to now. Both of them have their own businesses and are flourishing. And what a blessing that was for me to be able to be there for them when they needed it most. And then after that, we jumped right back into ministry, went full force for years and started building. And then we had a son who was 7 years apart from my youngest daughter. But the funny thing I noticed is when my son hit that preteen, teen era, again, there was another pause in public ministry for me. And I could say, well, God, why did this happen? This and this and that. But I realized this is the hand of God. God again didn't want me so overburdened with ministry that I would neglect my son and not be there for him, not be able to help him navigate manhood, to know what it means to be a young man, to help nurture his gifts, to encourage him, to spend time with him, to go fishing, to play guitar, to go to concerts, to go out to lunch, to do these things. I wouldn't be able to do that had I been overburdened with ministry. And so looking back, I realized, wow, this is pretty crazy to think about. That two different times when my I say two different age groups because my daughters were close together and then my son was a couple years apart. But in those two eras when they entered preteen, teen ages, I was not going full 100% in public ministry. And I think that's God, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I was able to be there to help nurture and shape my kids' lives. So am I saying that if you have a preteen teen and you are in ministry that you need to step down? I'm not saying that. I'm saying that's what God did in my life, and I'm grateful for it. And I know ministry will pick up easily for me once again when full force, when we feel it coming on right now, but we are just taking things, letting the Lord lead. But if you're in public ministry, no, you don't have to step down if God's not leading you to, but you need to be aware that it is a very sensitive age that you have to prioritize and focus on. You need to be aware of that. And so for me, that was a gift God gave me. I call it a gift to step down from ministry, to be there for my kids, to nurture them and father them. If maybe you can't, maybe that's your only source of income or whatever, or that's part of your job, then you don't have to step down from ministry, but you do need to prioritize your family, your kids. You do need to up that as a priority because that is your number one ministry. Even your relationship with your spouse. I keep talking about kids, but it's your family, it's your household. It involves your relationship with your spouse as well. That has to be a ministry. It is who you're called to be. And ministry shapes you, it makes you, it changes you as a person. So regardless if you're in full-time ministry, you're just a parent listening to this podcast, or a business owner, whatever position of leadership you have, your household is your number one ministry. That's what the Bible teaches. That's God's way of doing things. And if you would prioritize that, the other ministries, they're going to come easy, because guess what? You've already gone through all the battles of leadership, of love and respect and building honor and praying as a culture and Bible study as a culture in your home. That doing it for the church is a piece of cake because you've already been doing it your whole life. And that's the way God says it should be done. If you can't manage your family, you shouldn't manage the church. If your children don't honor and respect you in a worthy manner, then how can you expect other people to respect you? It boils down to your character, and family is the number one thing that'll build your character, because it'll test you like you never imagined before. It'll humble you. It'll straighten you. It'll show you your flaws, force you to your knees to ask God to help you correct some of your mistakes, some of your flaws, like I've done many times. God, help me be a better father. Help me be a better husband. Help me do things the way you've done. I messed up there. How can I fix this? How can I change this? And so I just want to encourage you, and it's funny, this all came out with that song, A Preacher's Kid, that the preacher's kid don't care about you or Jesus. And I believe that there's a shift in family happening in the church globally right now, where people are realizing family is the number one thing, ministry, your number one ministry. God is first, your family is second, then comes ministry, here comes your work and all those other things. But you have to prioritize your family. And I believe if we can do this, we can change the narrative of a PK, of a preacher's kid. I would love 20 years from now for the reputation of a PK is to be successful, loving, honoring, full of integrity and character. That should be the reputation of a PK. I pray in about 10 years, we hear songs written about PKs, preachers' kids, that they are leading the way, that they are setting the example, that they're full of integrity and honesty, and they flourish, they succeed in their business, and they love their family, and they have great marriages, they have great children. That should be the reputation of a PK, not what we've previously heard. So let's change the narrative together. Are you with me? Let's change the narrative together. Let's love God. Let's let God mold us and shape us. Let's love our family as our ministry. See it as your ministry, and it'll change your life forever. Bump it up on your priority list and let God use those precious years you have with your children. And if your children are growing up, guess what? It's not too late. You just have a different a different way of doing it now, because they're obviously not in your home, but you can still build a relationship. You can still love them. You can still, treat it as a ministry, just honor them and treat them in a godly way. And I think that would be so amazing. So I hope this encouraged you. I wanted to encourage you to let your family be your first ministry. If you'd like more practical application on how to build a godly family, make sure you subscribe, leave a comment and a review on the podcast platforms, and we will continue to share different tips that we've used as a family and different things you can do in your home with your kids, with your spouse, to build a godly family, because that is your first foremost ministry. I believe if you do it, God will bless you and you will see a great harvest in your life. Not only that, but you will leave a legacy that will last for generation after generation after generation. God bless you guys. Thanks for listening to the podcast. And as always, my friends, cheers to your good life.